Happy Monday, 3rd grade. Today we are starting our next week in our reading series, so take your small reading book out. We're on page 86. This week we're focusing on landmarks, and landmarks are different parts of our country, and this week we're going to focus on how they help us understand our country's story. So we're going to look at places like the Grand Canyon, the Martin Luther King Monument, the Mount Rushmore, and see different things that we can learn from those landmarks. All right, so actually we're on page 82 first. Looks like this. On page 82, you can see our essential question at the top that I just read, and then over here, understanding history. Martin Luther King Jr. played an important role in American history. This monument in Washington, D.C. honors his life. So I've actually been to this monument before, and this is exactly what it looks like. So if you see, it's really tall, and then you can see all the people down here, right? Kind of gives you an idea of how tall this monument is. Now, people visit monuments to learn about important people and events in history. While this monument has, yes, a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. on it, there's also a ton of little plaques around the monument that give you a ton of information about Martin Luther King Jr. and why he was so important. Second bullet point there. Landmarks and monuments help us to understand, to remember and understand history. Now, as we read this week, we're going to have 8 new vocabulary words. These words are on page 84 of your small book. This page will be really helpful to you on your vocabulary worksheet in a little bit. The first word that we have is carved. Right? This is the same picture that you have. Carved. To carve something is to cut it into a shape. So, for example, this river carved out this canyon. Right? In science later this year, we'll learn about erosion. And what happens with erosion is water comes through, and as water goes by something many times, it erodes. So little pieces of rock fall off, and eventually this is carved. All right? So carved is our first word. Our second word is clues. Clues are hints that help solve a problem. So, what would this be a clue for? Well, probably that a dog walked there, right? Dog prints and the footprints in the snow make are clues that a dog walked here. Next, grand. Grand means good or excellent. You might think about something like majestic. Later we're going to learn about the Grand Canyon, and you'll kind of get a better understanding of what that word grand means. Next, landmark. Landmark is an important building, structure, or place. So think about different landmarks that you might have heard of. Maybe the Statue of Liberty. That MLK picture that we just saw in our book, that's a landmark. Massive. Massive is something that's very large. So we're not just thinking big, right? Big, yeah, that's an okay word. We're thinking massive, right? Something huge is massive. Next, monument. A monument is a building or statue that is made to honor a person or event. So this is Mount Rushmore. This is a monument that honors 4 of our presidents, 4 of our past presidents, all right? So this is a monument. National, something that has to do with a country or a nation is something that's national. So, like a national holiday would be the 4th of July. Then, the last word is traces. Traces are small bits or signs of something left behind that show something was there. So, this would be, there were traces of snow on the plants, right? It's just a little bit. It's not completely covered. It's just traces of snow. Now, for your vocabulary worksheet today, we're going to do a similar thing to what we did last week, and on the back of this sheet that you're going to use in a little bit, you've got your vocab. Now, with all those 8 words that I just taught you, you have to either draw a picture or write a sentence that uses those words. So, for example, for the word massive, you could draw something that's massive, or you could write a sentence. So if I can't think of anything with drawing, or if I just don't really like to draw, maybe I would write, I saw a massive bee outside. Who knows? All right, so it's up to you. This is what your vocab assignment is. On the front, you've got your reading assignment. All right, so keep both sides will be done by the time we're done with this video. If you'd like to pause and do your vocab now, you can. Otherwise, you could do it at the end of our video after you've listened to our story. Turn the page. We're on page 86, A Natural Beauty. This story is going to be all about one of our national landmarks, the Grand Canyon. Let's go ahead and take a look at a video of flying over the Grand Canyon so you get an idea of what that would look like if you were to go visit the Grand Canyon. Now that you've seen that video, you've got a better idea on what type of natural beauty the Grand Canyon is. Let's read about it. It is a famous landmark in the United States, and it's huge. It is 1 mile deep and 10 miles wide. It was carved out of rock by the Colorado River. It stretches across parts of 4 states. What is it? It's the Grand Canyon. Our next heading here is Exploring the Canyon. Many tourists visit the Grand Canyon. In fact, almost 5 million people take a trip to this national treasure each year. People come from around the world to hike the dusty trails. They take boat rides down the Colorado River. They gaze across miles of massive red and brown cliffs. Nature lovers visit the Grand Canyon too. They come to look for animals. They peek at the hundreds of different kinds of plants. They may spot eagles and see mountain lions. They may spy snakes and spiders, and some may even see bats. Some visitors also come to learn about the canyon's history. History of the Canyon. Page 88 in your book. Explorers from Europe first saw the Grand Canyon in 1540. Then, in 1857, American explorers discovered it. They found groups of Native Americans living there. One of these groups was the ancient Pueblo people. The ancient Pueblo people lived in the canyon for almost 1,000 years. They were farmers and hunters. Scientists have found traces or parts of their old homes still standing. You see those cliff houses right there? That's what they lived in. Scientists have also found very old rocks in the Grand Canyon. These rocks are some of the oldest in the world. They are clues to how the canyon was formed. Some scientists look for clues about the people who lived there. They have found tools and pieces of pottery. Now this map down here also gives us more information. This map shows where the Grand Canyon is located. So you can see Nevada right here, Utah, and Arizona. So 3 of our states that it goes through. And here is kind of all the area that's this Grand Canyon National Park. Up here, it's a landmark. President Theodore Roosevelt visited the Grand Canyon in 1903. He saw how beautiful it was. He said it was a special place. As a result, he made it a national monument. Then, in 1919, the Grand Canyon was declared a national park. That means the land is protected. No one can build homes on it. The Grand Canyon is a place that all Americans can enjoy. Now, we've got kind of a sidebar down here that's still on the topic of the Grand Canyon, but it gives us a little bit extra information. So, protect the canyon. It's important for people to take care of national landmarks. We can do our part by following the rules when we visit. Animals and wildlife are safe there and should not be touched. Rivers must be kept clean. There is still a lot to learn about this beautiful landmark, and it's important that we protect it. Now, as a quick review of our story, you have 2 questions right here. The first one says, how does the Grand Canyon teach us about America's story? So for your answer there, maybe you want to write about something about the Pueblo people. Maybe you want to write something about President Theodore Roosevelt. Any of those things that were in our story. All right, use complete sentences. Complete sentences always start with a capital letter and end with an N mark. And then number 2 is a question for you. It says, what do you find most interesting about the Grand Canyon's history? Why? So what do you find most interesting about the Grand Canyon's history and why? Make sure you tell me why in that part. All right? So you've got the front that you learned about from our story. Then you've got the back. The back is what you is where you're reviewing your vocabulary words for this week. Good luck, and make sure you ask me if you have any questions.